All right, everybody. Huckleberry here with the latest installment of Last One to Katahdin Wins. We're going to talk about food and cooking this time. And that's pretty important because an army marches on its stomach, and you will also. And I'm sure I won't get into the topic too deep, but you can do all kinds of more research. Look up recipes and cooking tips that different people have, and talk to other hikers. Try some recipes at home. I'll give you some ideas here. Try them at home. Feed them to your family and see what they think. Hopefully, you'll learn some useful stuff here from me. That's my plan, at least. That is my plan. So first of all, the first thing to consider is whether or not you're going to cook your food at all. There are people that do not cook any food. They are cold soakers. They carry a little plastic jar and they put their food in there with some water. They carry it in that jar for some hours. Maybe they leave it overnight or put it in their pack and carry it from lunch till supper. Then they eat those ramen noodles that they soaked in there for 4 or 5 hours. They eat them and they say they like it. Same thing with oatmeal in the morning. So you take your choice. At supper, that's the trick, really, for this. I would have trouble without a cooked hot meal at night. Partly, I really enjoy the process of cooking. It's a hobby of mine, so it's a hobby I don't have to give up when I go camping or backpacking. So I like to cook. I'm going to cook. But if you want to avoid a whole pound by not having a stove or pot or fuel, this is a way to do that. You're going to carry water in your pack, right, with your food soaking in it. It eats up a little bit of those weight savings. But it's a real thing, cold soaking. Look it up, Google it, find out about it. People try it and they like it. I don't understand it, but they do. Okay, you might too. It's unlikely you're going to cook on a fire. You might think you're going to because you always have, and I'm going to tell you, you're probably not going to do it. The fire pits aren't set up for cooking, so there's no grill or grate usually to put a pot on. So you got to figure that out. That's doable. You might carry a twig stove. Look up twig stoves. There's some real good twig stoves that allow you to cook with little tiny pieces of wood. I've used them backpacking before, but I wasn't sure I understood the wood on the Appalachian Trail, all these hardwoods and stuff, and in the South. I could do it here in the woods of Minnesota, the kind of stuff that grows. I could do it. I have done it on backpacking trips. But anyway, fire, cook it on a fire, you're not going to do it. Forget about it. Nobody does it. I've met people that said they were going and they didn't. Met people said they did and they didn't too. So there's alcohol stoves that are real slow. You can make them though, which is kind of cool. You look up alcohol stoves. People do that. They use them a lot in Europe. And alcohol is an interesting fuel. Okay. So maybe a little hard to get. White gas stoves used to be the big thing, but now I think you'd have trouble finding white gas at every town and stop that you get to. So you can use gas from a gas pump. I've done that with white gas stoves. But there's a lot of different white gas stoves that are pretty lightweight. They got a lot of BTUs. They cook fast, but they're a little fussy to light. And you got to worry about a liquid fuel that you can spill and have to put up with the stink from. So white gas stoves, look into that. Canister stoves, what most people use. I used a canister stove. I used a jet boil stove. It was really fast, and they're a nice stove. The stove itself is a little expensive. You get real cheap canister stoves too. Buy canister fuel that lasts weeks, and they're pretty cheap. And you got this canister though that gets thrown away, maybe gets recycled. You know how that goes nowadays. I highly recommend whatever you do that you have a cozy, an insulated cover for your pot. I consider it to be an essential piece of equipment. All you do is heat your food up to boiling. Here's a cozy right there. And put your food in and just let it set. Just let it set for however much time you would have usually simmered it. So if it's a meal that you're supposed to simmer for 20 minutes, you don't sit for 20 minutes. You go off and do something else. Have a little snack, set up your tent, that sort of thing. This is a cozy for a teapot. People do that with teapots. So while the tea is steeping, it stays hot. That's the idea with cooking too, is to have a cozy. Jet boils, this jet boil comes with a cozy on it. And that's kind of nice built-in insulator on the stove. And this is a pretty popular model. I had this model instead. It's got a titanium pot. It's a little bit lighter. And I had to make a cozy for it. There's my cozy. I used this on previous camps out. I already had 300 miles in that cozy. And I took it on the Appalachian Trail, another 2,194 miles. And it lasted all that time. If you look up how to make a cozy online, you'll find a lot of different tutorials for how to do that. And here I am eating out of my pot with my cozy on it. I made a cutout there for the handle. There's a little bit more to it than that, but that's going on there. Here's my daughter eating out of the jet boil that's got the built-in cozy. I think cozies are appropriate technology. You will not be sorry if somehow or other you have a cozy. And I guarantee you, and your cozy really could be of fabric. It could be something like fleece, a fleece bag that you make to put over your pot. Your pot won't be hot enough to melt it, right? It won't be hotter than boiling. I'm going to ask you this as a personal favor. Please do not do this. Do not take a plastic bag and pour boiling water into it in order to cook your food. It's just dumb, right? I mean, the plastic is filthy now. You can't reuse it. I mean, single-use plastic is the terrible stuff anyway. We should avoid it. You just ruined a perfectly good Ziploc bag right there, people. And what about microplastics in the ocean? I'm telling you, it's like cigarette butts in a urinal. You can't relight them once you've done that. And these filthy bags are that way too. So I would ask you not to try to cook this way. Just wash your pot out. People say, well, they don't like to wash their pot. Well, I'm going to tell you, you can wash your pot out, but put a little water in there, swishing it around and drinking it. And then the next time you use your pot, guess what you're going to do? You're going to boil water in it, right? You don't have a hygiene issue here because you make everything by boiling. You never have to wash your pot with soap. That's not something you got to bother with. Wipe it out with your finger, a little water, a little coffee, have some coffee out of that pot, and it is clean, all right? Don't be putting food in a plastic bag and soak it water it, okay? I purchased my first food supply at home at a Walmart supercenter. Then I took it home and I counted up all the calories and all the protein. I found out that that's just sort of average food supply had 4,500 calories per day in it and more than 100 grams of protein. And that's what I was looking for. So I figured I'm good with that. As long as I get a menu pretty much like that menu, I can know I'll have that 4,500 calories and 100 or more grams of protein. And I'm telling you, do not neglect the protein. You need that protein because otherwise your body's going to start eating your muscle. So pour the protein in there as much as you can and get your calories from decent sources, not candy, but decent sources, okay? I lost 30 pounds in 3 months and then I held steady. I just wasn't really fat anymore, you know? So I think I had enough calories to sustain me and enough protein so I could build muscle instead of lose muscle. I've finished the trip in pretty good shape, actually. I mean, looking okay. I didn't have that starved look that a lot of hikers have. They've been living off of candy for 2 months. Like, I'm 65 years old. I can't live off candy. Cookies, maybe, not candy. At a good store, I could get $10 a day for food. A bad store, $20 a day. So usually was somewhere in between there. My food weighed about 2 pounds a day. I didn't have a lot of freeze-dried food. Even if it was available, I didn't really like it. And it's expensive. God, it's expensive. You're not going to live on $10 a day. You're $10 for a meal if you're eating dehydrated, freeze-dried foods, okay? So I got my food all on the trail. Hiker boxes in hostels and hotels are a really good source. Always check them. People get rid of stuff they don't like or they're tired of. I never got tired of anything. There wasn't much I didn't like. And so you'll find actually new things to try even in hiker boxes that you never thought of before. That's the only place I ever got powdered peanut butter, for instance. And that's a good way to add some calories to your chow. Grocery stores and convenience stores are cater to hikers along the trail. And so you usually be able to find like fuel canisters at those places. A gas station that's near the trail might have fuel canisters for hikers and a reasonable collection of a backpacker food. So yeah, I did not use mail drops. Oh, that's what I looked like. I was skinny, man. I look good. But if that's actually from a broken rib that I got there in the very beginning of May. That's why I took this picture, not to show off my amazing physique after the hiking that I'd done. This is a picture I took at a gas station to show all the food available in a gas station. This was in New York State, I believe. And so a pretty good variety of what hikers are looking for just at a gas station, because they knew if they had it, people would buy it. So yeah, so anyway, you can find the stuff you want. And if you have special food needs, you might need to mail drop it to you. If you have to live without gluten, if you're a vegetarian, they have trouble finding everything they want to make their food at least decent. So you won't save money probably with mail drops, even if you buy stuff cheaper online and mail it out to you, because it costs to mail. Okay, that kind of eats up your savings. So do it if you need to. You might have prescriptions you want to send to yourself, for instance, that might require this. But yeah, so think about that. If you have a real need, then the mail drops work. And like I said, there's that resource, the ATC's Appalachian Trail Through Hikers. A planning book will tell you exactly where to mail stuff, the addresses and everything. It's a really good source, okay? I'm gonna go through my whole menu with you just for the heck of it. Let's start with breakfast. My breakfasts were pretty simple. I'd have 2 to 3 instant oats, or I'd have granola, and I would check the protein on them. Sometimes they get the high protein versions of granola and oatmeal. I pretty much never had anything other than granola or instant oatmeal. Actually, I had grits, but the grits actually don't have the protein that you want. So oats are better than instant oatmeal. And there's a lot of different flavors, so you can mix it up that way. That's a plus too, mixing it up. I'd have a protein bar breakfast of some kind, and I had the Carnation Breakfast Essentials. You're going to want those. They're about $1 a packet, and but you add that into your breakfast, mix it with your coffee or mix it with your granola, your oats or something. And that's a great way to boost your calories and your protein for the day. So look into that. For lunch, I always had a couple of tortilla shells, 8 or 10-inch ones. If I had 6-inch ones, I'd have 3 of them. I either did peanut butter and dried fruit, in lieu of jelly. I usually had dried fruit because it's lighter. It's okay. Or I'd have cheese and meat. And I like grated cheese. I didn't have to cut it. and then summer sausage or pepperoni was the meats I typically had. A lot of people like the packaged of tuna or corn or chicken, little foil pouches. Sometimes you get pork or pulled pork also, and that kind of packaging. But I didn't like those packets. They were messy. They were messy trash to have. And so I enjoyed more of pepperoni or summer sausage when I was going to do meats. And then I'd have a sweet gorp and often a granola bar. It's kind of like a dessert for lunch. And notice not a candy bar, but like a granola bar. But they're like candy, right? So let's not fool ourselves. But by the way, I'd suggest you buy decent good granola bars. Spend a little bit more for granola bar that has more nutrition in it. Now for dinner, this is the big meal of the day. I'd have a couple of ramens, but I'd add meat to them. Or I would have a Nor's side, and I'd have meat with that. And for meat, I'd have chicken, pepperoni, summer sauces, jerky. And if I had pepperoni for lunch, I'd probably use it for supper too. If I'd have summer sausage for lunch, I'd have it for supper too. Partly because, once you open those packets, there's a little bit of a use by consideration. And so I would try to use them up quicker by doubling them up on the meals like that. I really like jerky in my suppers, not for lunches, but for suppers. You break it up and throw it into hot water. It softens up nicely. You don't even know it's jerky anymore when you eat it. A lot of protein in the jerky. And so it's a good way to go. I did the rice sides, not the pasta sides. It's important, you want the rice sides. There's a bunch of different flavors of ramen, a bunch of different flavors of Nor's. You got different meats to pick from, which means that your suppers can really vary a lot just by having these basic ingredients. There's other things that you can work with. There's a kind of chili that I would get as well that I thought worked really well. One package gave me a couple of meals and made me awfully gassy though. I mean, if you're staying at a shelter, that's a consideration. You're around other people. So anyway, but this is what I ate. I mean, every day. This is what I ate. And it worked for me. I felt really good about my meals. They sustained me. And yeah, so no problems. Uh, I would have a savory gorp, not a sweet gorp, a kind of a spicy gorp. And I'd eat that while I was cooking, something to do. Then I'd have a Snickers bar for dessert. A dessert made me feel like I was done eating. So something sweet like a Snickers bar. For me, it worked really well. Signaled my brain that supper was over. And then I might have hot chocolate. I had snacks, one or two in the morning and one or two in the afternoon. Some kind of gourd protein bar, granola bars, that kind of thing. Notice again, I'm not eating candy for these interludes. And I really like the Gatorade protein bar. Oh my God, I really like that. So check those out. They generally are a little bit cheaper. The protein bars are going to cost you $1 or $2 each. Yeah, serious business. And especially they're really good ones. So you want it to be good. You want to enjoy it because it's a big part of your budget's going to be these protein bars, granola bars. By the way, gourd, bam, protein, right? And sweetness has got everything you need. And I should have had gourd more probably. And I think the issue was variety. The protein and granola bars gave me a lot of variety. Okay. Guys, town food's expensive. Alcohol is one of the reasons you're in town. You want to have a beer and stuff. And that's expensive. But you're going to want to go to town to get vitamins, usually from green vegetables, and maybe to correct your calorie or protein deficit. For a lot of people, this was their main reason for going to town. They weren't getting enough calories and protein on the trail. So they went to town and gorged themselves. And I never did. I did not gorge myself in town. I was getting enough nutrition on the trail, except for the vitamins. I took a daily vitamin, but I really longed for green things. And so I'd always make a point of having a salad. You do get the hiker hunger where you're just hungry all the time. And you go to town for that, for variety in your food, actually piece of meat, what I'm saying? For instance, maybe some lasagna, go to the China buffet, some things like that. And I got to tell you, a real good reason to eat in town is to socialize with people. Now, I didn't do this enough because I was so cheap. I'm such a cheap guy. And I'm a retired school teacher. I ain't got no money. And so I could have gone to socialize with folks and go to the restaurant with them, but I'd save the money. I'd cook at the hostel. And I'd have, higher quality camp food, but still camp food. Look at that breakfast right there. That was at a barbecue joint that served breakfast. Oh, that was a good one right there. Here's a very nice Mexican meal that I got at a place. I can't quite remember the name of the town, but right across from the Howard Johnson's hotel I was in was this Mexican restaurant. Oh, it was a good meal right there. And this is in Clayton, Georgia, a nice restaurant with a great hamburger right across the street from an outfitter that had washing machines that you could use at the outfitter, the 76 outfitter washing machines. But this is often what I would do. I get some sausages at the grocery store. I cook them up back in camp. You see there's sauerkraut and cheese on there. I got some lettuce. I'm sorry, that's spinach. And I'd have a big meal made with fresh foods that cost a fraction of what I'd spend at a restaurant. So you can save a lot of money if you cook at the hostel, sometimes using their stove and fridge and stuff. And if you avoid alcohol, sorry to say it, but save a lot of money. So there you have it. My favorite place was in Hanover, New Hampshire, where the college there let you eat in their cafeteria. And that was all you could eat. You could get there for breakfast and stay till after lunch. And that was really nice. That was a nice deal. A lot of gratitude for those people there, a lot of gratitude. So that's the skinny on trail food. There's no reason why you got to finish the hike all emaciated and stuff. And your food does not have to be boring. I think it should be an entertaining part of your day should be making your food. That's my feeling at least. So until next time, this is Huckleberry saying happy trails.